give you a second to claim some real estate here. My name is Michael Metcalf. I'm the chair of the Expressive Arts Department. But during this summer, I'm actually not the chair right now. Our chair is Courtney Michaud. Please wave your hand. Courtney's in the back over here. She's our new wonderful flight professor. And she's the summer chair, but I'm up here introducing who are these people? Krissy and Chelsea, and that's because I've worked with them through their career here at Western. I want to point out another member of our Expressive Arts faculty, Jim Pendergast, of course, hiding in the far back corner. And next to him is Karen Neal, the honey that holds the whole department together. And I thank all of you for coming out and supporting these wonderful artists as they have this exhibition. I also want to thank the Miller Library for allowing this, providing this venue and helping to market the event. And I can't say enough about these wonderful, talented young artists. They graduated a year ago. They're doing what? Well, I was looking at at any rate. I know them sort of, and so at any rate, it's a wonderful opportunity to see their work, to see them share from their hearts what they're doing. And this is a great opportunity for you guys because not only do you get to see the work, you get to actually hear a message about the work that's not always available. And so I often tell people whenever you have an opportunity to see a retrospective exhibition or go to an artist's talk where the actual work is, it's a wonderful opportunity, and that's what you're going to get today. And since we're in the library, we have a unique setup, and we have an opportunity for each of them to start to share some of their information of what's going on in their head, what's going on in their heart, and what their hands have created. So take it away.
Thank you again for everybody that showed up for our opening today. It means a lot for Chelsea and I to see all the encouraging community, and this is why we strive to do the things that we do. So for today's talk, like Michael mentioned, we're going to get into a in-depth discussion, excuse me guys, behind our concepts that inspire our work, and then afterwards we're going to leave a couple minutes after our talks for an open conversation with the audience in case if you want to ask us any questions or discuss our work a little bit further. So for those that do not know me, I want to introduce myself. My name is Krissy Ramirez. I am from the town of Douglas, Arizona. Woohoo, go Douglas! And I consider myself a border baby. And the reason why is because I was born and raised in this border community where I jumped back and forth between the United States and Mexico. I graduated last year with my Bachelor's of Fine Arts and with a concentration in ceramics, of course, and also was awarded the Artist in Residency for the 2017-2018 year. Thankfully, another year with the decision of our loving Expressive Arts Department. So a little bit about my work. I wanted to share this body of work as a coping mechanism for something that I went through during high school. This is called body dysmorphic disorder. For those of you that do not know what this is, BDD is characterized by an obsessive idea that some aspect of your body are severely flawed, and people with this disorder go through exceptional efforts to fix or hide these flaws, and you spend hours thinking about these imperfections, and I didn't know I was going through this until I moved to Silver City. During high school, Being highly influenced with the Mexican culture, it was instilled in my brain that I had to look the best to be the best, in order that I have to do my hair, I have to wear the best quality clothes for me to find a suiting individual in my life so they can take care of me. I was always referred back to this Barbie figure, which is the tiny waist, long legs, pretty face, perfect skin. And that took a toll on me. Being forced to play with Barbies as a child wasn't my favorite toy. I actually hated Barbies. I did not like their unproportional figures. I hated the fact that they were smiling all the time, that they were happy, but in a sense, that's why I chose this figure for me to express my BDD disorder. In high school, I tormented my body in ways that it affected me mentally. I suffered through a small period of anorexia because I felt that being like a little twig was going to make me beautiful in a sense, and this led me to the point where I would fall asleep with a corset for about 2 months, and it was affecting me negatively to the point that I carried this ideology when I moved away from Douglas. So I found out that I needed to get rid of all this negative tension and society's pressures on what this woman body should be. So what better way to do it with art? While I created these figures out of clay, I kept on wondering why I made myself go through such a horrible time. Why did I disrespect my body? Why would I wear and fall asleep with a corset just so I can fulfill these expectations from everybody else? So my conclusion when I made these was basically a therapeutic process, and I felt a range of emotions. I felt relief, I felt anger, confusion, but overall I understood why I went through that process, and it was a liberating feeling. Working with raw clay also helped me get rid of all this negative tension that I had because of BDD. I tore them up, I ripped them apart. They're not anatomically correct. They are abstracted for a reason, and this reason is because I thought that I looked like that. But obviously in reality, I don't. And this was something that I learned with this body of work, is building my self-esteem and confidence. The outcome of this was basically an enjoyment. I felt liberated and free from all those tensions that I had, all those stresses that were weighing me down, and I didn't feel beautiful. But after making this body of work, I now come to realize that I had to build myself up from all these negative thoughts and create it in a better light. I can say that I'm healthy than I am before. I love every flaw of my body, and I just wanted to show this as an awareness that some people deal with it, some people don't, and it's a really good feeling. It was just liberating, like I said, and that's all I have to say for right now. And now I want to to introduce my studio mate, Chelsea Boone, and she's going to give her in-depth analysis of her work.
Thank you, Krissy. That was a beautiful talk. Hi, my name is Chelsea Boone. I'm currently the artist in residence. I've been the artist in residence for the 2017-2018 year. I'd like to thank all of you for coming this evening. It means a lot to us. We were not expecting a crowd like this. It's kind of amazing and kind of really is stressing us out, but please be patient with us. This is like our first time kind of doing this. First off, I'd like to talk a little bit about myself. I grew up here in Silver City. I was born here. I've lived here my whole life. Yay, boring. But I found that I actually really enjoy this town. It's a very nice, small Cuban community, and a lot of people don't like everybody knowing everybody, but I think it's kind of a neat feeling. It's like a family almost. My artwork started out, I was a painter and a photographer, and my art had a feeling of really childish figures and like cartoonish style to it. And that was because I feel that my mother kind of shielded me from the world. She not necessarily kept me, but kind of prevented me from going out and experiencing things. She kind of just gave in to my shyness because I was dead, terrified of doing anything without her help. And all of that changed a couple years ago. She was diagnosed with glioblastoma, and that's a brain cancer. And we had a huge family fallout, and nothing was the same after that. I lost my mom's whole side of the family. They didn't want to have anything to do with me. They kind of took her away from me. I wasn't able to have any contact with her. And to all of that, I was trying to graduate from college, and it was a really stressful time. And so this body of work has to do with that roller coaster of emotions that I went through at the time. And to get into detail about this work, the spirals, they were to represent the emotions that spiral and flow. It's a really strong energy. Emotions can compel people to do crazy things, like, hey, I'm really feeling happy, I'm gonna go do all these crazy happy things, or I'm really angry, I'm gonna do something horrible. And the spheres for me represent the heart and the soul, maybe even the head, your brain, because those are the two things that emotions come from, I feel. As you can see, some of these spheres are pierced through, and that's obviously to represent the heartbreak that I went through with losing my mom, who was like one of the most important people in my life. Also, inspiration for my work is my sensei, my teacher. He has taught me a lot, and he really opened up doors for me where I'm not painting anymore. I'm working with materials that are really difficult to manipulate, and that's what I really like about working with metals and stuff, is because the sense of power I have over it, and since it is so difficult to manipulate, gives me a sense of power in my life. I also would like to talk about how the process of doing bronze. I do the lost wax casting system, and we do it here at Western. And it's really a fun process for me. A lot of people find it really difficult, and it is, and that's because it takes a lot of patience, and things can go wrong really easily. And it's just a great surprise if after all that hard work and effort, if it comes out. And I also really enjoy the process of pouring the bronze itself. There's actually some videos around of actually Krissy and I pouring some bronze, and it's a really intense feeling because you're like, this is really dangerous, but I don't know, it's just that feeling of, wow, this is exciting and I can do this and I have the power over it. Anyways, in closing, I really enjoyed this body of work. It was a huge thing to overcome, and this was really hard for Krissy and I to do. And we'd really like to thank you all for coming again. I'd really like to thank WNMU's Miller Library. The staff is amazing here. They helped us set up this afternoon, and it was great. I'd really like to thank the staff of the Expressive Arts Department for putting up with us and for helping us. Without them, we would not be able to get through any of this, especially with the emotions that we've gone through. I'd like to point out that there's a sign-in book over here. Please make sure before you leave to sign in, so that way we know how many people have shown up for this event. It'd be really helpful. The works up here are for sale. Please feel free to come up and look at the pieces after we're done. The works are for sale, and if you'd like to buy a piece, please see the reference desk, and they will help you with that. Now, I'd like to invite Krissy back up here. We're gonna do questions and answers. If anybody has questions for us, please feel free to ask.
I have a question for both of you. I noticed the pieces, why only torsos? And
That was one of the main things that I had. I'll just everybody can hear me, right? Yeah, I feel more comfortable like this. The microphone, obviously. So I focused on from the legs up for the reason that of the corset experience that I had. I always felt constricted. I made myself go through the whole feeling of getting tied up, and that's why I wanted to focus really much. I felt like I needed to have this really hourglass figure in order to be perceived as beautiful, but in reality, I was being silly, and I was letting those social pressures really weigh me down. So that's the reason why I focused more on the waist area. It was one of my insecurities, and I felt that that was one of the body parts that I personally didn't like about me.
well, kudos for using your art to confront personal issues and come out so positively at the end.
Thanks, yeah, appreciate it.
And Chelsea, my question is, for you, why the differential between the smooth and the textured in each piece?
Well, for the smooth, I used mostly the smooth for like the emotional outflow. That feeling of like, that's a happy, smooth, calm emotion, and the rough textures to represent like something more intense and maybe unstable. Any more questions?
Why were you guys feeling
This department, the WNMU, has been really encouraging, and they want to help us succeed. So because we were graduates already, we didn't know the direction where we wanted to take our career. So they allowed us the opportunity to use the university's studios for us to make more artwork and build a more artistic career from that. Does that answer your question? Yeah, thank you, I appreciate it.
It's for both of you. What are you going to do next?
So luckily, with our encouraging expressive arts department, we were awarded another year of residency. We are going to focus on creating or making our portfolio better and applying for postbacks so we can have guidance for more academic routes. So that's the goal now. Yeah, we're gonna get postbacks.
And I'd like to point out that we also have a third artist in residence that's going to be joining us at City of
At
Becca.
City of Chicago.
More questions?
So, I have a question. So, you mentioned that you were going to be creating a portfolio. What are you going to do next?
So,
What are you going to do?
I think, like, I said,
know they used to have a live-in artist in residence who was a paid position here at Western. As artists in residence, what are your next steps to connect with the community?
So we are hoping to have more exhibits like this, where we can give back to WNMU and we can get more critical feedback from the audience, just so we can have more of an outside perspective instead of being around artists all the time. And I feel like that would really benefit us as upcoming artists.
We also were thinking about maybe a more public venue, maybe someplace downtown, a gallery downtown, but we don't have
Sure.
a solid.
We have a lot of ideas, and
Yeah, a
you'll
lot of
see those
ideas,
in
not
fruition
really time.
pretty soon.
Yes.
I'm familiar with the lost wax process from like 50 years ago, but how did you actually use it to create your?
To create these bronze pieces.
How does it work?
So it's a really long process, but we start out with wax, we make a figure, and we add some plumbing to it. And by plumbing, I mean we add more wax, and then there's a cup, and then we add a base to that to make it stable. We give it a couple coats, well, multiple coats of slurry and sand, silicate sand. And then it goes to a process where we put it in to have it fired. And in that process, all the wax burns out, while at the same time the shell hardens into a hard ceramic shell, and it turns white. It comes from like a green yellow color to turning white. After that, we take it and it's ready to pour molten bronze. We pour at 1900 degrees and pour the bronze into now a hollow shell where the wax once was. After that, you knock off the shell and you have your piece right there.
So when you knock off all the stuff, is it done?
No, there's a long process after that, but that's mostly just to beautify it after that. I mean, you have the plumbing you have to cut off. That's the hardest part, I feel. And then shining it.
Yeah. How is this show different from your first show when you graduated?
That's a good question. I feel like this is a more personal approach with the audience. We've never had an open discussion. This is our first experience with having loved ones like yourselves come up and talk to us about our work. And that's something that is really beneficial because we have to come up with answers right on the spot, and it's just a different experience overall. I feel less nervous and more connected with you guys.
It's also a lot different because Krissy and I had found this ourselves. Like, we had guidance, but we took this initiative to do it ourselves. We came up with the idea ourselves. We had to come up with a flyer, we created our own flyers, so the process is a lot different from, well, the process was a lot more difficult than like for the BFA shows.
And it was pointed out to us that we're pretty hardcore for making this happen in less than 2 months. So, yeah, it was a great experience, and I'm just looking forward to making more of these venues. Yes.
Why are your pedestals different?
Why pellet pedestals? So I have this sense of, I've been working with pedestals since my first body of work, and I wanted to keep the same relationship. I didn't want to have them in really nice, pristine white pedestals because the artwork itself is raw. I have a connection with pedestals because they remind me of a cage as well. The rocks are in there to represent the social pressures that I used to have before, everything that was weighing me down. So I want to keep using the palette pedestals and rocks in my future artwork to have that my style. So it's developing since I graduated last year to my future work.
I just want to say, so that is very representational of you.
Yes. Yeah, the whole figure being constricted with all these ideas.
And also the pedestals, about the, like,
the rawness.
the rawness and kind of like you being imprisoned by the ideas that were formerly in your head. Yes.
And yeah, and now I'm getting out of my own prison by having my figures come out of them.
Exactly, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, I really appreciate that. Yes?
So I have a question for both of you. Both of your work seems pretty timely in what's happening in our current culture. Chelsea, you kind of referenced the power you take when you work with the medium that you work with. And Krissy, you're dealing with body dysmorphic issues that are often seen in our female culture. Have you recognized your voice as a female artist? And if so, how do you plan on developing that in the future? It's a big question.
Yeah, I need to take a moment. So, my first idea was having different bodies to have a more cultural awareness for today's time, but I ended up making it a more personal experience with focusing on just me. But I feel like society has this idea of what a beautiful woman should be, and by breaking apart through with those ideas, I feel like as a female artist, I don't have to pay attention to those beliefs anymore. I can throw them out the window and be confident with my own work and my own style. And I have this feeling that it's going to be represented more in my future work as well. Just breaking free from those stresses was my main concern, and now that I have stresses from other academia and my own environment, I know what's important and what I should focus on instead of being afraid of what people thought, or this expectation of being the best of the best, just like in my Mexican culture, because we're not, we're imperfect. We have to embrace all those flaws, and I feel like the step that I took here was to get rid of all those stresses, and I hope that answers your question because I rambled off a lot.
To be honest, can you ask me that question one more time? Because I got caught up listening to her.
It was a good answer, right?
Yeah, it was a very good answer.
So I'm wondering if you've recognized your voice as a powerful female artist in our current culture. So you seem really timely in this moment and what's happening in our country. And if you have or haven't recognized that voice, how do you imagine developing that in the future?
That's a very difficult question for me to answer. I don't know if I've necessarily found my voice. I've gotten a lot more comfortable with what I'm working with. To be honest, a lot of the times when I make my work, I don't really understand it until I'm finished and it's completed, and then I understand what it is that I've been working through and what it means to me. And I don't know if I've necessarily found my voice as a woman artist yet, because I haven't even confronted that side of myself, except for maybe the fact that you said, like I said, that the power I feel over working with these materials, because to be honest, how many women do you know go out there and weld or bronze or do any of these things? So I don't know how to really completely give you a great answer on that.
That was a very good answer.
Can you tell us about your favorite piece and why it's your favorite?
My favorite piece, to be honest, is this top one right here. That one's my favorite because, for multiple reasons, I introduced bronze and steel into this piece, and it was a lot of tedious work. And I really enjoyed it because it reminded me of just that swirling emotion, but it also reminded me of power, and I like how a sense of balance you get from it, and it's free, it stands by itself. It's also my favorite piece because I would really love to make it about 20 feet tall, but I cannot afford that right now, so it's gonna stay like a foot tall right now.
Krissy,
I'm gonna step over here. And if everybody wants to take a closer look when we're done with our talks, this one is specifically my favorite. It was the most challenging for me for the reason that I chose 6 clay bodies to make this with. And if you don't know a little bit about clay, you need to experiment with it before building something so you can build a relationship with clay. And it broke down on me, it tore up, but I was persistent and I ended up making it together. And the challenges that I faced with working with 6 type of bodies is what makes this one my favorite piece too. Something that I didn't bring up on my discussion was the brick texture. Once everybody comes and pays closely attention to it, that was my way or my metaphor, as in all those social pressures weighing me down. So like foundations in buildings, we build ourselves up with bricks and walls, and that is me literally trying to rebuild my sense of beauty. So, yeah.
Could you explain the tiny pinheads, please?
Yes, so the tiny pinheads, like I said before, I played with Barbie dolls, and this figure was basically given to me at a small age because we had that separation, guys and girls. Guys plays with cars, girls play with dolls, you know. And I wasn't fond of Barbies. I would rip their head apart, yeah. And I wanted to focus more on the body instead of the head, so I defaced them. So I wouldn't think that these bodies were me. They were just those Barbies that I was torching when I was Yeah, I didn't want them to be perfect or anatomically correct. The background or the idea of it was being raw and being content with the rawness of these bodies. Bill, and then we'll get back to you.
Why are the belly buttons open holes?
So okay, let me trace that back. When I made these figures, I felt that my guts were basically being constricted, and the experience of me just poking a hole through it made me get rid of that feeling. You know, I took all the stresses that I had in my abdomen and just released it out, and I feel like having the accentuated belly button got rid of all the toxins that were in my body. Yeah. And then we have a question.
If you were unrestrained by practicality, this is a 2-part question. What form would your work take? And second, what influence would you like your work to have on society in the future?
Is this a question for me? Or for both of us?
Sorry,
Okay, can you repeat the first part of that question?
Sure. If you were unrestrained by practicality, what form would you like to see your art take?
If I wasn't restrained.
In other words, unlimited resources or any choice of materials or...
I would still work with clay. I found my voice in the medium of clay. It is a tedious project. I feel empowered through it, especially being a female artist. I wouldn't make this body of work if it was sculpturals or paintings or anything else. It was just, the material itself gave me a liberating feeling, and I feel like that adds to the rawness of these figures in a sense, and how it applies to society now. Was that your second?
Yeah, how would you like it to change the way the world is? So
I want kids to stop thinking that they need to be perfect. That all this social media and the things that they see on billboards and commercials and makeup, and you have to embrace yourself for who you are, because we spend so much time worrying about what other people think, and instead of being content with what your body is. So I want that message to be sent across, but I would probably do that in another body of work where I focus on different culturals, and I would probably do research on what perception or what beauty is for these cultures and go off on that. But basically, yeah, this concept can go any direction that you want, and I feel like nowadays more than ever, it should be shown to teenagers and high schoolers, because they worry so much about their appearance that 20 years later they're all like, why did I buy those $120 shoes that lasted me for 2 weeks? It's just, yeah.
For me, if I had access to unlimited resources, I guess that was your question, I'd go much bigger. I want to do more public art. I want to go bigger. And I don't know, my message in my work is not really a message necessarily that I want people to necessarily understand. They don't have to understand it, but I guess just understanding the process that I go through more than anything is how I feel it would change society. That women can do anything they want to. They can go get down and dirty in clay, or they can go get down and dirty in in welding or whatever they want. They can get sweaty pouring bronze and lifting heavy objects, and I guess that's more what my impact of my artwork would have on society. Okay, so I think
Again, thank you everybody for coming, and we appreciate all your support.